Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am your host, Solaris BlueRaven. My wonderful guests this evening is Miesha Johnston and Steve Colbern. And what a nice pleasure it is to have both of them on. I love both of them. They're wonderful people, intelligent, brilliant, and very, very evolved in their area of research. So, Miesha, before we hit the break, there we were touching a little bit on clones. Do you want to continue on and what you were doing with regressions?
Yes, sure. Okay, so regressions, I found as of late, I've been doing a lot more of my regressions with trauma release therapy. It's what I specialize in, and I have on the I'm going to say where exactly, but all over the world. I've been talking to people and doing regressions for them, and I have found over and over a very interesting fact with clones, with secret space program, and with super soldiers, that it's like they're just coming to me, and there is such a thing. These are happening, and it is real. You know, there's secret space program. There are people who they're not going to talk about it. They through the regression. You know, I can't really go into too much about it other than people have their alters come in during a regression and start speaking up, and these people don't even remember what went on during the regression because their alters are doing all the talking. And I think that's a really interesting point, that with all the programming that they've done in all these, and it's all government program. We're talking about all the government crap that they do. And that I now am a believer because of all these sessions I've been having with people who are having these things. I wasn't sure about these things and whether they existed, such as cloning. But
well, yeah, it makes perfect sense, because the whole idea with EEG heterodyning and cloning is that you're taking a template of something else and interfacing it on and mixing the signals onto a normal brainwave pattern of the target. So they're actually inserting alters and personalities of other people or hive collectives. Yeah, they tried to do that with me in 2004 with the artificial telepathy interface. So I'm very clear on this. This is how I was able to decode it, because I understand very clearly what they do. And the saddest part is, you're right, everybody, in my opinion, I think a great majority of people have been compromised insofar as they've tried very hard to insert these quote unquote personalities. You know, when they say people have multiple personality disorder or they're bipolar or schizophrenic, that's BS. I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying that I would say at least 90 or 80% of the population is being mislabeled deliberately, because I can guarantee you that this is going on. And as you can tell through your own regressions, that you're seeing it also. Another thing to look at also, Steve, and you can chime in on this one, would be checking for implants around these areas and signals, because that would show if there's an interference pattern coming in, it's going to show, it's going to be abnormal. Go ahead.
Oh, right. I'd love to be able to work with you and that, take the people that I have these regressions with and then turn them over to Steve. That would be great.
That's what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think they got the idea for putting alters in people. The government did from the aliens. I think the aliens have a very sophisticated method of creating a different personality for abductees. That's why, in my opinion, abductees don't remember anything about or usually don't remember anything about the experiences, because the memories are on a different personality track from the main personality track they use down on Earth. It's like the movie Total Recall, where Arnold had two different personalities, one from his Mars secret agent days and another one they gave him for working on Earth.
And,
right.
That's spot on.
Memories don't cross.
That's Philip K. Dick, too. You know, what's interesting also, when you were talking about the extraterrestrials, you're right. They copy everything that's off-world and weaponize it here in their covert intel. They're notorious for that with their mind control.
And one thing, primitive version of what the aliens are trying to do.
And the one thing that's really interesting is, because of my work with DNA activation and ascension work, and I also had a soul ascension. We were multidimensional beings, as we touch on. We exist simultaneously through multidimensional space. That includes star systems. That includes celestial heritage, which is part of an extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, when we activate our DNA, we're actually, through frequency, we can actually bring in an aspect of that, which downloads into us, as you all know, and activates a personality or an aspect of us, which is a very higher consciousness celestial design. Now, that can take on the formula of what people would say as an alter, but it's not. And that's what you're talking about too. The different personality tracks. There's some that come from the cosmic design, and then there's their work, which is really just about EEG, heterodyning and cloning, and mind control. So, and the one thing that I can probably mention, and I'm sure y'all agree, would be the celestials, in my opinion, through my experiences, have never been brainwashing anybody. It's about enlightenment. It's about ascension. It has never been about trying to control, manipulate, dumb down, or switch off the DNA.
No, it has not. And I find it absolutely consistent that people who have the PTSD are not the people with the experiences of the contact and the ETs. They are
Mhm.
the people who've had the government slash ET interactions and abductions.
Mhm.
And they are the ones that cause the PTSD. Yeah,
Correct.
and yes, the ETs, I agree, have done their type of brainwashing, but most people don't come back from their experiences with the ETs all messed up and PTSD and feeling like they're schizophrenic, feeling like they have alters and all of that, even
Mhm.
though they did get that technology, I'm sure, from them. But
Mhm.
they bastardized it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, they do weaponize it. There's no doubt about that
They
one.
did weaponize it, yes.
Yeah. When it comes to the covert intel, but yeah, and the PTSD
Yep.
is very, very. I can tell you point blank, people get stressed, and if you're under duress of psychotronic programs, artificial telepathy, and the stuff that I've been through, you go through stress like you would believe. It's like coming back from a war zone. And even though you can handle it, it's still like I'm not surprised that people have PTSD. First of all, in my opinion, it sounds like Miesha that these people don't want to be taken again by military abductions or mind labs.
No,
They want that's probably the PTSD. It's not coming from the extraterrestrial, right?
no, it's not. It's coming from they don't want to go through this anymore.
Right.
Um,
Just leave
and
them alone.
Some
Yep,
of them
I
have
agree.
actually left the military because they started waking up to the fact. In fact, I've had military people tell me on the group that said, you know, I was mind controlled. And I said, absolutely right. When you're in a military situation and you're in boot camp or even not in boot camp, they desensitize you. They
Mhm.
they
They break
keep
you
you
down to
from,
build you
they
up.
break you down, your food, your water, they make you run and work out and do all this stuff, and they break you down to put something else in. And all these guys think and talk about it, especially these ones coming back from Vietnam. They say it's like another person that did that. I don't feel like I
Yeah.
did it. Well, no, you didn't, and that's the so sad of the thing about it. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
They programmed you. They mind
Handlers.
controlled you in it. They
Right.
handled you into it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's an indoctrination programming. And what's interesting is, I can relate to that what happened to me in 2004 because my handlers definitely were running this show. And I
Hmm.
look back now, Misha, and I'm telling you right now, it's like I wasn't even there sometimes. I look back and I'm like, it's like missing time, but I remember it. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
like so strange when I look back and see this.
Well,
So,
that's the way alien abductions are too. It's like if you remember anything, it's like it was a dream. They're not
hmm
really
Uh
traumatic
huh.
memories, and that's either by design or because the memories are being filtered through the other personality.
hmm yeah,
Hmm.
it's really
Hmm.
interesting. And that's what it reminds me of, like a dead zone, because when I look past like the past 13 years of my life, after what happened to me in 2004, I swear to God, it's like, I I just don't even feel like I was alive, and I still don't feel like I'm alive now. I mean, it's really really strange, but I'm so many aspects of me are in different orbits right now. It's very strange. It's not
I
like they're
can
fragmented,
understand that. Yeah.
but I'm
You
telling you,
stated
it's
one time that you felt like an AI. I mean, I kind of feel the same way
well, I'm
sometimes.
Yes,
interfaced
I
with
do
it. The
too.
thing is, it's like because I've been interfaced with the technology since 2004, the anomaly signals were never dissolved. So it was always had an influence on my DNA. It always had an influence on me to some degree, right? So I stay as close to my personality that I remember as I can. But I can tell
Hmm.
you point blank, they were running the show big time
Hmm.
in 2004. And it's a really strange thing to realize that after you come out of this really strange whirlwind, I mean, out of all these storms, and you look back at the storm, and it's just like, and I know you can relate, but that's why I don't even know. I can't even explain it anymore, other than the fact that I wonder why I'm still here on the timeline, because I feel like sometimes I'm a ghost in my own body, right?
Oh,
Now, I don't know
I
if
know.
anybody else feels like that, but that's what happens when you go through these programs, or at least when I went through.
Well, I
So,
So
totally feel that too. Because my next book is going to be talking about the MK Ultra from a childhood and on through all the way.
mhm,
And
excellent.
the reason why it's so important that this comes out is, I felt in 1989 is when I woke up to all of these things, including the ET contact, but everything. In 1989, as far as I was concerned, I was born. That's my feeling. I can't explain that to you, but I know why, because many other people that I talk to in do in my groups or in the sessions and stuff feel the same way. It's like our altars have been controlling things for so long through the handlers that have been doing it, that now once we wake up, we're not exactly sure. I mean, you look back and you might remember some things like you're talking about, but you're like you were like seeing it on a screen. It was
like
not
a secret
like
witness almost.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You weren't in there. You weren't in your body. You didn't
No.
feel like it, and
I don't
it's
think
crazy.
I was. I mean, I know I was
I don't think
on
you
some
were
level,
either.
like, as overseeing, like the higher self oversoul. The soul star will oversee the whole event. But what's interesting is I feel almost like a cloned copy.
That's
what's
creepy.
Seeing those old pictures of you, you do look like a different person. And
yeah, I mean,
I can tell by looking at the picture that you had a different personality too.
See, isn't that strange?
Oh, mine is too. Oh my gosh, I don't look a thing like I did.
And it's not normal aging. It's not normal like, oh, they're just getting older and she changed her hair color. No. I agree with you. And that's what made me, and that's why, I used to take photographs of myself over the years to see me morphing, because I was like, who is this person? Who is this person?
Your aura or the energy that the photographs give off is totally different from one to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that movie. When I reminded myself of Scanner Darkly, where it's the scramble suit. They were always scrambling me, always. So it gets so deep and dark and twisted and mangled. I just have to look back at it. I keep what I know of me close to my heart, right? But I'll tell you right now how my life was erased in 2004. How I lost everything, my husband, everything, and they wanted to reprogram me into some weird reality to accommodate their illusion. So I can tell you, and this is why I appreciate what Miesha does with the mind control, the psychotronics. We have to expose a lot of this stuff, because our lives are significant, and nothing is worse than going through life achieving a lot of different things. I mean, I achieved a lot of things in my life before they showed up, and then having everybody just take your life away and burn it like it means absolutely nothing because somebody said they could do so through some covert intel agency or someone's personal agenda in California.
Well, they think that we're all insignificant serfs, slaves, subjects, whatever.
Sure.
I mean, that's the lawlessness of the American intelligence community. A lot of people have commented on it. They really do feel like the end justifies the means.
Oh, I was just about to say the same thing. Exactly, they do. In my book, I quote a lot of the sub projects that they have. It was ridiculous how many sub projects they had, and how they would twist them and change them and twist them and change them, and it was all human beings that they were using for all of these sub projects. There's so many there's millions of people out there that have been affected by all of these things, and now we have the targeted people that are the latest thing. They're the psychotronic warfare.
Oh yeah, they're getting zapped. Like you believe they're doing beta testing. I don't know if you knew
really
this or not, Miesha. They're doing. I mentioned this beta testing the other night because I'm not going to mention the people's names, but and you probably know this one lady, but she had been hit in her home with a type of communication system, artificial telepathy based psychotronic, for about a week, and then she got so panicked she took work off, and she contacted me, and she was under duress, and then they left. Now this is not imaginary. These people are actually stalking, targeting. They're doing beta testing. They're pinging people to see if they can hear or listen. And I'm telling you right now, it's these people have to be tracked down and prosecuted like you wouldn't believe.
Well,
they really
I'd like to run something across by both of you. While I was up in Roswell, all of a sudden I started getting these. I looked down and I said 147 messages. What's that? And I looked at it, and I had these unknown with 19 messages, unknown, and these are stalker messages. These are, I got on a list somehow, I don't know, but I am not on the list that is telling me things or be trying to make me crazy. I keep hearing from the people who are saying things like, well, I'm going to read it. John Crotch the Fourth, stop torturing me. I'm not going to have sex with you, cult members, or you. Stop gang stopping me. Now, and this is it. Then they also then I did get one that said, so-and-so is at such and such airport. I'm not going to say the states or anything, but such and such airport. And then later they had another one that so-and-so is at such and such and is on the way over to such and such. So this is how these damn gang stalkers do it. I realize that. I don't know how this happened to me and how I ended up getting it. This one today that I just got at 8:04 was somebody who's being gang stalked. There's a number of 19 people that are probably being gang stalked by these animals, and they're saying things like that. And then I had other people, and I'm only getting just a couple here and there because I went and I got on, and I will tell everybody, if you're having this kind of stuff happening on your phone, go get one of the security things like a Avast antivirus or Avast, whatever they call it, security, and put it on your phone. You can then block those numbers.
Having that kind of stuff happen during my divorce, and last few months I've been having a lot of calls from strange numbers that when I call back all these numbers that call me, but I don't answer it unless I recognize the number, but I call them all back just to see where it came from. And a large number of these strange calls lately, the number will say the number is not in service.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. I did that too with some of these numbers.
So the intelligence people just take a number that's not even in service and just use that one time and then go on to the next, I guess.
Do you remember, Steve? And also, when your phone was hacked, I remember my phone. They tried to hack my phone. Remember that, Steve? I told you.
Yeah.
Somebody was trying to use your identity to contact me.
Yeah, they were trying to drive a wedge between us. It seemed to me.
It was very weird. But I'll tell you right now, I would definitely do something to shield yourselves from that. And also, if we had really good intelligence and FBI, they would be cracking down on these gaslighters, gang stalkers, and the people that are deploying the covert harassment. They're not doing that.
Well, that's what I told them.
I said that before too. I called up Verizon Security a number of times and complained about all the cyber stalking and they wouldn't do anything about it. And I finally got mad at them and yelled at them that back in the day the FBI would have been at people's doors for this kind of stuff, and you're not willing to do anything about it.
No, there's a part. Right. I think they're partially in on it, and that's the problem. I think I've mentioned this before, but I knew some people when I worked surveillance and security on Maui, and one of the guys who applied for the FBI out there went through an interrogation program and wound up hearing voices in his head after they interrogated him, the FBI. And I don't think that was coincidence. I think that was a directed energy weapon. I think that was part of their covert harassment program. So I can tell you, I do know that these guys in the Fed understand very clearly what this technology is and where it's deployed and who's doing it, and they don't do a damn thing about it because of certain areas that are black. So, but it's still, and this is one of the reasons that I've addressed it to DC. And I'll keep addressing it until somebody does something about it because it's inexcusable and unacceptable. And as Miesha knows and I know, too many people's lives have been destroyed by covert harassment, psychotronic programming, mind control, induction programs, whether it's a MyLab or whatever. You don't do that to people. It's not okay. And we are celestial galactic beings. We are galactic beings, not citizens, galactic beings. You can say you're sovereign and you're this and that, but when push comes to shove, we don't come from here, period. And they're violating us by universal law. They're violating our free will as well. And it does need to be addressed. And I think with all the disclosure and everything else, well, you know what? This is why I always say, let's disclose the technology used to control and manipulate brainwave patterns that's causing all this stuff. And then we can sit there and start talking extraterrestrial. But let's clear it first, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So, look at all the distortion.
We do have patents on file for this type of technology.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere. We understand very clearly. I've talked to plenty of developers about the technology. I've had it measured. I understand it very clearly. As a matter of fact, I understand artificial intelligence probably better than the developers understand it because I've been interfaced with it for a very long time. I'd like to know how many people were plugged into the same technology I was plugged into and survived because I don't think very many have, quite honestly. So I can tell you point blank, it takes a really strong person with a really strong brain to interface with that kind of a thing, So some people get little voices here and there, or they get artificial intelligence or artificial telepathy. When you start getting the interface hardwired into you, and it becomes almost like a weave, you tell me how that works for you after 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years. You tell me what it's going to do to your military personnel after 10 years. Compromise, memory loss, alters, you name it. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's wild. And that's what I mean by they're just trying to poison what we are as multidimensional beings too, as spiritual beings, because I was doing some really cool work before I was pulled in the program. I like doing my DNA activation, teaching my martial arts. I wasn't interested in this crap with covert intel and mind control. I didn't even know what mind control was back then.
They need to be taught that all of our lives matter and that we're not just subjects for their amusement.
Right. Well, I think what it is independent thought is a really big deal. And you're an individual, you have independent thought, like we all do. And the fact of the matter is they want everybody cookie cutter cloned to a point where everybody thinks the same way, which is really about illiteracy and not evolving and not growing and keeping us lulled and dumbed down to such a point where everybody can be enslaved by this artificial intelligence array system. That's not okay with me. That's not okay. It should be okay with anybody here on this timeline because we're not designed to do that. I believe in singular consciousness merged with source. I believe we can all sync up and be into a hive to some degree, but not like that. Everything is honored. It's just like it's ebb and flow. Everybody has respect and courtesy for each other, right? With technology as well. And you don't see that, but I know that that's because we're dealing with people here who are not evolved at the level they should be to have access to what they're doing. And then, of course, you look at Project Paperclip, rather, and that was, they were always mastering mind control back in the day. And Miesha went through the hardcore stuff. I mean, she went through some really strange physical stuff before they got into the technological sweeps.
Right. Yeah, they were used us as guinea pigs in making this technology. And so it's so interesting because I will hear people talk about their experience and things that have happened to them. And I think, well, yeah, okay, that explains all these different kinds of tests they put us through to, like the driving program is a very good example of, taking people, not allowing them to sleep, in some cases, putting them to sleep for days, weeks, and months. Now they've done the opposite, not allowing them to sleep because they're torturing them, but they're taking out memories and putting in memories, and that's what they're doing with this equipment. And there's got to be some way to counteract there's got to be some kind of Tesla information out there that somebody has that we can counteract these kinds of attacks that people are having.
I've talked about the radionics and other Tesla coils that I know can be used. I'd like my Wardenclyffe Tower, to be honest with you. I think that if we ramped up enough Tesla technology, we could easily negate these programs. Easy. Easy.
Well, the synthetic telepathy, I think, is just ELF scalar waves. You just need a large spherical antenna, and away you go. And I don't think there's a whole lot to it, really. A large Wardenclyffe Tower type experiment would put out a lot of telepathic waves that the brain would pick up.
Well, if you look and see what he was doing before he was hijacked, insofar as the way they took his information and weaponized everything, the military, we wouldn't have a military had it not been for Tesla, if you ask me. But point blank is when you see that he was able to communicate with free energy, that means everything else. And of course, telepathy is involved with that. So we are naturally telepathic. And yeah, that was like a booster also to basically, radiate around the globe so that people could have interconnection and communication. What these guys are doing is just an abomination, But Steve, I'd like to talk to you about what you're talking about, because if we can get that device made, well, maybe we should start doing that, because this stuff needs to stop. So if it takes us going into private enterprise and doing something where we have to build these things and saying, look, we're done with this.
Funding is the only thing.
That's I'm working on that myself. And let me tell you something. When I get that funding, you're right there. And whoever else wants to be part of this.
Thanks.
And I mean it. And I'm pushing for it, because this is enough is enough is enough.
I've got some other ideas that I think you'd like to.
I'm sure.
Involving so-called fringe science that actually exists.
Well, you know what the thing is? If you want something done right, you do it yourself. I spent many, many years after the induction trying to get everybody's attention in Covert Intel and in DC, and they did. I got their attention all right, but then they went ahead and started pushing the artificial intelligence programs. Instead of helping me, they wanted to use me as the lab rat, the guinea pig, the test pilot, and take those templates and sell them to people like DARPA's. Look at what they're working on in DARPA right now. So I can tell you point blank, no, it's time to say, if you're not going to honor this, then somebody's going to have to deal with getting them negated. So getting their technological warfare departments pretty much just dissolved at this point. I know they want to use it for their military and they want to use it for their super soldiers, as Miesha was touching on. And I would have made a fantastic super soldier because of my martial arts background, and plus I'm a sci-spy. But I can tell you point blank. And who's to know if they didn't? I mean, I can't tell you they didn't use those templates and cloned half of it with their department. Probably did.
Oh yeah,
because they were using me in 2004, 5, and 6 very, very well. I mean, they took a lot of information off of me back then in my brainwave templates. So I can't tell you where it is anymore. But when you said I morphed over the years, that's concerning to me. Okay, it really is.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the fact they seem to be going towards the kind of a system like the aliens have, where they're all linked together telepathically and kind of like the Borg.
That's exactly what it is.
I don't really think
it's
anybody
noisy.
wants that for humans.
I don't know about you all, and I'd like to ask both of you this question now. After my interface, I used to sleep really well before I was plugged in this technology. I mean, I would sleep like, if I had visions, they were lucid and very clear, and really never dreamt. I've never really dreamt that much. Very, very psychic. My antenna really switched on. Nowadays, it's like the Borg. So in other words, I'm always hearing some kind of a transmission. It's never restful sleep for me, ever. And I mean, I've learned how to navigate the technology, okay? I've learned how to ride this technology, but it reminds me exactly of Star Trek, exactly of the Borg, because it's nothing but transmission.
Well, I have chronic anxiety, and I think it's partly because there's all these transmissions as you're talking about that are just beyond the range of attention.
It's just like radio waves. I mean, but it's more than that. But what about you, Miesha? Now you do the galactic languages. Do you have silence in your head at night? Can you sleep?
I go to bed with a ringing, but not every time. And some nights I get some really good sleeps, but I have the constant ring, and I know I don't have the.
It's not tinnitus.
Thing. It's not tinnitus. It's not Meniere's.
It sounds like a psychotronic, but I don't. I mean, I'm just.
But I'm not. I don't notice anything. However, last night, for instance, I went to bed with the ringing, and I went to sleep, and I did good. But I woke up with a dream of an encounter I'd had. Well, actually, it was good because it was a memory that I had with when I was with the Montauk boys when something happened. So now I had this memory. So I don't know if they're. I sleep pretty good. I gotta say I'm lucky. I sleep pretty good, but I do still have the ringing, and it's all. And I've just learned how to just.
Well, that's what I did, and I don't think it's healthy to be able to calibrate with technology. I did calibrate this technology. I learned how to navigate the waves, and I also took the helm. But I can tell you, I will never have the same life I had before I was inducted. I will never have that peace, not until this thing gets completely blown out of my system. And by then, so much of my database has been jacked with. I've got to like patch everything back together accordingly in alignment with the cosmic design, which is, and the cosmic design is always there. I'm not taking calls right now, guys, so don't call in. But that's what I'm talking about here, the craziness about it. So somebody tried to call in. I'm not taking calls right now, guys. So, but yeah, it's just really, really weird. So I can't tell you, all I know is that a lot of people get interfered with at night. And, if you have peace of mind and you have a life that's not being interfered by any type of a technology or induction or anything, then I think that you should consider yourselves very lucky. Those who are listening, because boy, oh boy. And another thing is too, Miesha, I'm a firm believer that they've also jacked with people on a neurolinguistic level because of my experiences, and also that they try to compromise people's speech patterns. And they will pursue that because I know exactly the techniques they use with their directed transmissions to do that. So there's no such thing as people being mentally ill, and there's no such thing as people having a disability, as you kind of touched on that earlier. And sometimes say, well, maybe it's a gift. I can tell you right now, they're doing a lot of messing with people with neurolinguistics right now, and they're trying to make a big mess of people insofar as speech patterns go. And with me, I can't go into specifics with it on air, but I'll tell you about it later. But it's definitely there. Go ahead. Anybody? Feedback.
Well, as far as sleep is concerned, I know that since my divorce, I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's not good.
Yeah, and it just was too much stress. But before that, I was only sleeping about 4 or 5 hours at a time, and I had an incident one time where. I think it was 2010. I had a whole bunch of abductions, like it was like every day for 2 weeks or more, and I told them, like, you're killing me. I'm not going to be able to function for lack of sleep. I thought they'd back off, and instead of backing off, they took me up to a gray mothership and handed me over to some tan grays. They put me in a big chamber with these conical scalar antennas pointing towards the center of this big room, and exposed me to some kind of scalar radiation, and I couldn't sleep at all for 10 months after that. Then after that wore off, then I was okay with only 4 or 5 hours sleep at a time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Big time. Well, I went through something similar. I mean, it wouldn't let me sleep in 2004. As a matter of fact, they kept me up deliberately. I had to stay, keep my clothes on. They said, to make sure that I couldn't sleep, that everything had to be packed and I had to be ready and waiting for them to come and pick me up.
Wow.
That's how much crap I went through. And, it gets ugly and it just got worse down the road after that. But yeah, the whole idea of being stressed and keep them stressed, keep them distracted or keep them busy, keep them to the point where they're so much in overdrive that they can just sit there and distract you and insert things in between the spaces of you being in overdrive. So this is an interesting warfare program, and I call it a warfare program, the one I was subjected to. I can't speak for everybody else. That is a warfare program they would use on personnel and also sci-fi technology. And since I know how it works really well, and I know that certain people with specific clearances have access to the synthetic telepathy for their own, use, right? So it does work. But at the same time, I think that what they're trying to do here is compromise everybody's belief systems to a point where they have one synced up group collective that's based on what they want to create with their New World Order agenda. It's what you think this way. And we were touching on this a little bit last night with my other guest, Michael Sala. And even though we were touching on, who decides who leaves planet or not, who goes off world, who decides who's part of the Black Space Program or beyond. If you want to go, say you want to go past the Galactic Center, you want to go home. Well, they're not going to let you do that because that's their call, and they decide they want to dominate and do global domination here on this illusion of a planet and keep everybody in a stasis here. That's what's so interesting. They don't want us out there, but we come from the stars, so we go home to the stars. No one has the right to stop you. And the thing is, and if they can't get you through the timeline of life and the illusion of, they'll try to give it to the church and say, well, we'll control it through that. Well, if you have to function this way, otherwise, you follow these rules and regulations, then you go here when you leave the planet and the illusion of where you die. That's BS. So you see where this is going. It's all a mind hack. It's all a mind game. Everybody's been had to some degree. And I think that we all just need to take our power back and disable and dismantle some of these technologies that have been misused and use them on a correct level where it's free energy again. Why don't we just do the Tesla thing where we just go free energy, where people aren't making billions of dollars, these insidious SOBs out there with these corporations who have made all this money at the expense and suffering of so many people?
Well, I think you're right. I think we need to develop defenses against these kinds of technologies, and it sounds to me like it's probably pretty doable, but it just takes
money,
a place to work to experiment with.
A lab. Well, I'm working on it. And I don't give up. I really don't.
There has to be
a lot of people.
There has to be somebody out there with money that can see that this is just so wrong, and that the only way it can be changed for thousands of people is if somebody steps up and puts
what happens
in their pocket.
I agree with you, Miesha, and I think the problem is also a lot of these guys are worried that they're going to come after them if they start funding these things. They're going to realize that they're going to come after them, or they're going to come after their family, or they're going to it's all bullying. It's a bullying thing too.
We already tried a couple experiments along those lines. Remember the graphite cloth I sent you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That didn't work, unfortunately, but maybe something made out of carbon nanotubes would work.
I need my own spacesuit. I need a helmet.
We need a helmet. I
need a helmet. I want a really cool helmet like in Tron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want one of those really nice helmets, and I'm just going to wear it all the time, and I'll just flip off everyone and anything that interferes with me. Go ahead.
I think these days you could probably build a spacesuit with off-the-shelf technology for maybe less than $50,000. It wouldn't cost millions like NASA pays for them.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, I always say this, but it's like tongue in cheek. But when you think about the quote unquote, when they show aliens coming onto the world or off-worlders, and they all have spacesuits, right? And they have little helmets, and it makes you wonder what that was really about. Because I would say, they probably need something to shield themselves from all this contamination, plus the technological assaults that they get. And especially if they're psychic, telepathic, which I know they are, off-world species, that's what we are. But technically speaking, they've weaponized that to a point where it's such an interrogation program, And it's not that they can read your mind. From what I've seen, they've been able to try to intercept and overlay what's going on with your brainwaves, but not really reading the mind itself. But go ahead.
No. We're immune. That's one more thing about starseeds that's characteristic, is we seem to be immune to this kind of programming. We're extremely hard to brainwash.
And
stubborn. Don't bend well to this kind of psychic, synthetic psychic attack, and I think that we're just much more strong-minded than average.
Well, that makes a lot of sense when you think about that. That people who are actually noticing that these things are happening to them and being programmed or having the attacks and such like that. I wonder if they didn't, if it just went along with the program, and went ahead and was brainwashed and turned into, the Joneses and all of that, would they stop on them, do you think? Or,
I think they would, Miesha. I think they would. And I think that one of the reasons they ramped up a lot of things against me later on was because I wasn't complying with what they wanted. I wasn't going to. What am I going to trust? The multiverse that I know clearly, my database, which I know is not tainted, or them and their malicious intent. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to comply with that, right? Now, I'm one for technology, as Steve probably knows. I love technology. I love artificial intelligence when it's used properly. I think synthetic telepathy has its place. I think all of this technology has its place. But no, you don't sit there and do what they're doing here. And what I experienced was a total manipulation and domination, mind control, and covert harassment plus spy. And then
They're worried about. They're afraid that our government and people down here in general are going to take their technology and run with it like a 5-year-old that's found his father's gun or something.
Well, there you go.
Screw everything up.
Yep, and they have. That's exactly what they're doing, Steve. That's exactly the mentality. They're like a bunch of kids with a technology they should have never had access to. I mean, I'm wondering about these 20-year-old. I'm not saying they're all punks, but a lot of these kids in these military operations who are very, very young. I'm sorry, but I didn't even grow up until I was maybe after 35 to 40 years old, right? And I'm looking at these kids that are really young and programmed in the military that have access to all this stuff, and they do it by a joystick in Area 6 or Area whatever, global intelligence. And the CIA is the same way. They're hiring young people, kids that are not seasoned as consciousness-oriented beings. You cannot give these people access to information and technology and expect them to behave properly. And I saw this happen with Mossbox.
They want young people that can be programmed easily.
Exactly. They're programmed from the very beginning with the games, with the military games and all the other games. And they're programmed from the beginning, so they're just so pliable and so programmable.
That's exactly it. Well, I like video games
too.
That's
our future.
Right. Well, it's not my future, but I'll tell you right now, there is a war going on, but there's something to be said about who we are as multidimensional beings, because even as we age in the illusion of time and space, we are still infinite beings. We are immortals, and we will be immortal. We're never going to not be immortal. So it doesn't matter how old we are in the illusion of these kids. To me, they seem very, very young insofar as young souls go, or almost entity controlled, where I don't think there's much in there. And that's concerning to me, because we are advanced beings.
They don't want anybody deep. I mean, they might not follow orders.
Well, I saw it, and I'll tell you right now, and that's one of the reasons I get very concerned about it, because these guys, and even these gaslighters, these gang stalkers, they're young punks. And Miesha, it's interesting when you talk about the phone thing, because when I was pulled into the covert program in 2004, I had a bunch of punk people affiliated with Mossbach out there calling my cell phone. And they were making all kinds of cryptic crap comments and everything else. I reported them to Verizon at the time and everything. I mean, I have documentation out the wazoo from those records of years ago. And like I said before, it becomes such a bad dream, and you don't realize, because when you're encompassed with this program, you have no idea what's going on until afterwards. It's like a car accident that you see, you go through it, but you really don't realize anything until later on. So it's just one of those weird things. But
well, a weird thing, you said Verizon. Steve said Verizon, and mine was your Verizon. Now, I was lucky, and I called a Verizon, and I got a very nice young man who was the one that told me about going through the Avast and being able to from then on, be able to block them and delete them. So, it stopped for me. But up until it did, I had a day and a half of solid. Every time I looked down, there was 100, 200, and I mean, if these
ridiculous.
people, they weren't calls. They weren't calls. They were all texts. They were not calls. They were texts. Yeah, they didn't call me. They only text me, and I think that's what they do to these poor people that this is happening to. And I told the people who came on and said, "Will you stop doing it? And you're crazy and stuff." I said, "Call the FBI. Everybody needs to call the FBI about this."
Oh, they don't care. I initially called the FBI when this happened to me, when I came back into Boulder. I remember calling them and like, well, we can't help you. Really? I talked to police chiefs.
That's why I didn't call them. I reported it to the local police.
I talked to police chiefs on Hawaii, on Maui, who were connected and later on recruited to Quantico. And I told them what was happening. Nobody cared. If they did care, they couldn't do anything, right? And they stalled and they stalled and they
They want to
stalled
be able
and
to
they
spy
stalled.
on everybody, so naturally they don't care about somebody spying on somebody else because they
Right.
want to be able to do it.
Well, I can tell you also, Miesha, and Steve, when in 2004, I had a guy who handed me a CD and said, "Be careful what you listen to," and handed me an apple. I mean, that's the kind of creepy crap that I had to deal with when I was getting pulled into this program. All like, it was like the stupid cloak and dagger thing going on, man. It was just ridiculous. When I look back, I just want to knock these people out, I'm serious. I got so angry. And at the time, you're so traumatized. At least for me, I was so traumatized because, I have to tell you, most people are not prepared to deal with that type of a thing where you completely get interfaced with a technology that completely takes over your vitals. It hijacks your entire system. It hijacks your bioelectric field. It hijacks everything about you. Most people aren't prepared to deal with that.
No.
I mean, virtual reality is one thing. Try getting plugged into it. It's a way, way different. Way different.
Abductees are plugged into it, and it just isn't quite as intrusive as the government stuff. But
correct.
The aliens basically own us as abductees. They could push a button somewhere and flip us over to other personality and make us do anything that they wanted willingly.
Well, I think I'd like to verify that certain ETs. You do think that it's all the abductions or all the contacts or experiences are abductions?
Well, no, but I'm just the ones that the people most commonly see are like that, where they could control people through the implants and through direct telepathy if they wanted to, in my opinion. But they don't usually do that. They could if they wanted to.
They could, yeah. Because and I see the other aspect of doing with the channeling and talking to the consortium and such as that I see that there's so many other species out there that are looking at this like that this is not okay. So
right, the only reason they're able to do what they're doing down here is because they have permission from our government, and
exactly.
the alien council cannot stop them at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not considered okay by galactic standards or whatever.
No, it's not. It's violating our free will. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. When you look at the system today in the linear world, how laws are created out of lawlessness, that there's no such thing as a real justice system. It doesn't exist. It's no surprise that this is going on. It really isn't, that we're getting pulled into these projects or covert projects or inductions or whatever it is, and that there's nothing being honored when it comes to free will, because they're not honoring it here at all on the timeline.
No.
So, but it does need to change, and I think that us being here on the timeline, we are game changers, and I believe that 100%. I don't think any of this
planet's under a quarantine. I think this is a prison planet or an experimental planet of some kind where they're scared to death. The aliens in general are scared to death of a lot of our ideals or messed up ways of thinking are going to get out into the rest of the galaxy. Like Islam, for example, is a philosophy that they're scared to death of.
Ideology.
That and the concept that it's okay for the 1% to own everything, including the other 99%. They don't want those kind of ideas getting out.
Right.
No,
well, I agree, but I'll tell you point blank, and I've always said this, that there's a limit in evolution here with these guys, and I'm a firm believer that they don't exist in the cosmic design. In other words, we're immortal beings, as I was touching on, but I believe that there are certain species here that are not immortals, that this is it for them on the timeline, that this is it. This is the end game for them. We have an opportunity to go home. They don't. And I'm really seeing this very, very clearly. Even the 1% who thinks they have everything with their billions and trillions of dollars and all the access in the world to everything that we couldn't possibly even see, they still won't get anywhere because they are not selected and they're not the celestial code.
I think a lot of them are kind of jealous of us, actually, because
absolutely they are.
We're the elite in a lot of ways.
We are the elite. We just don't have the billions of dollars. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I don't have any arrogance about it, but I'll tell you right now, we are super intelligent beings and very evolved in consciousness. And I can tell you that I have a lot of listeners that are very switched on, and I know that you all are, and the people that follow your work and the people that you've interacted with. We are different. It's expanded. It's not. We didn't get our education from this world. We got our education off world, which makes us very unique. And I can tell you right now, you can be the smartest person.
Downloaded.
Yeah, absolutely. But these guys, in these covert operations, they're all scrambled. They're all scrambled, and I don't want their confusion. I don't want I even call it a brain virus, because after you have so much mind control done to you, it just makes them
flighty. They have a very flighty type of energy.
Oh my God, it's like completely multi-personality, and it's all about the schisms created through the induction programs that they've gone through. And I can say from my ex-handler, I saw him testifying, and I saw his, he was just flip-flopping around. These people, they're not stable. You have idiots like that using technology on me? Are you kidding? I mean, these guys can't even wipe their own butts, and they're wanting to try wipe somebody else's. Get out of Dodge.
Well, they're worried right now that that some of the big gun type of technology I referred to earlier, that's like their version of an atomic bomb. Their deterrent to other powerful species. Our government now has knowledge, or at least preliminary knowledge of how to do some of that, and they're really worried about that, and they're gonna have to try to stop them at some point. That's what they told me anyway.
Well, I've said it before, but I think mankind's on a self-destruct course, and if he doesn't get it together, he will cause his own extinction, his own demise. That doesn't mean we will be extinct. It just means that they're going extinct, and mankind is going extinct. That's the whole idea about species war. I've always said it's a species war because we're more than what we are in these suits, and we are multidimensional. We are the aliens we seek. We are the extraterrestrials we seek. That's why we have the communications we've always had. And that merged with the higher overtones of the cosmos, because that's where we come from. It's normal for us, right? So whatever they're doing here is just a conflict of war. It's just unbelievable. There's so much going on here. Too many conflicts. But it's got to change, and it will, and it is changing. But I appreciate
it's out there too, is we have too many conflicts.
I'll tell you right now, though, I don't forget people who screw with me. Okay, I'm not going to forget. And I cannot forgive people that do insidious things like this. I can grace a situation and I can move on by the law of grace. I can do that, but I cannot forgive what they've done. And there is accountability. And I will tell you right now, when you're tampering with people's ascension codes and you're tampering with people's consciousness, and you know that they are pure energy and beautiful light beings, and you're screwing with them, you have accountability, whether you like it or not. And I'm seeing it across the globe here. This negligence, this crazy behavior, this global domination, it's all going to change one way or another. And one thing I would love to say,
the same people that hunt species to extinction and squash entire species to build housing tracts and stuff like that, and still sleep well at night. So no wonder
they can't even manage this planet. The illusion of. Do you think they can manage something else out there? That's what cracks me up. Also, you've got the 1% and the illusion of all these people in power. They can't even take care of their own gardens. Get away. And it's not us. We're not the problem. It's them enforcing these indoctrination programs on the star people and expecting us to accommodate their illusions. Are you kidding me? Their stupidity, their ignorance, their illiteracy? No, we're not putting up with it. So this is why you're seeing the rifting going on here on the timeline too. You're seeing that, the pillars of light, those of us who are expanded in consciousness are breaking orbit, and the rest are just living in the lie. But it's got to come to a head. It's got to come to a head. And they talk about the alien disclosure, and I'm saying, well, you know what? I'm not going to say anything about Nephilim. I think we are Nephilims, quite honestly. Or at least we're a hybrid.
But I'm going to hybrids, I know that, but I'd like to see what kind with the DNA analysis later on when it becomes economical to sequence one's entire genome.
Well, you have to realize too that the DNA activates through frequency, so you can get a reading, but it won't be the right reading unless it's a certain frequency, because the frequencies are activating the DNA. That's where celestial heritage comes from. That's where ascension comes from. So that has a lot to do with it.
Dr. Lear thought they could actually program your DNA through scalar radio signals, and maybe he was right.
Well, I think they can, but there's also a firewall, which means the celestial codes, which come from our original DNA from the cosmic design, they'll just keep overriding it. They'll just keep overriding it. It's kind of like a war game. And I know this because of what they've done to me, because they kept trying to run stuff on me too. But my celestial heritage kept overriding. But as you can tell, over the years, things have changed, and, but I just reset everything accordingly. But I want to say, we have about 10 minutes plus or minus here, and it's a pleasure to have both of you on tonight. I love this. We'll have to do this again because it's been wonderful. And also let's go with both of you insofar as how to get in touch with you and how to reach out to you. And let's start with you, Miesha.
Okay. You can go to my website, starseedawakening.org. You can also Vector 5 Tours, actually. It's vector5tours.com. If anybody is interested. In fact, we are going to be doing something for the symposium. There is a group of actually 4 of us that have businesses for the vectoring and the night vision goggles and all that. So we're going to group together, and we're going to be offering night vision goggle experiences. And if people will watch Facebook, they'll see that that's going to be. And so anybody who's coming here for the symposium, check out, our tours. And I think you'd find them very exciting. And my partner is also a he's an ex-ranger, but he's also a ranger, and he also has been doing this for like 20 years now, and he knows all the great spots and everything like that. So that's another thing. You can always go on my Facebook sites to any of the events. I put all my events out. I'm going to be having a hypnosis to recall, and that's with Dr. Sasha Lesson and Janet Lesson and myself. And that's going to be on the 19th here in Las Vegas. So look for the events for that, because is kind of like let's call it a mini hypnosis session, but for a large group of people. So it'll be very interesting. And then of course I'm going to have them as my speakers on the following day, on the 20th, at our UFO Las Vegas group. So I have a few groups that I do.
That's fantastic.
And right now we're doing Star Watches. I'm not having groups at my house, but we're doing CE5 Star Watches. We had one last night. It wasn't so great because of the about the cloud cover. They kind of ran us right out of there, the clouds. Mm-hmm. So that's about how you can reach me. And go get my book if you can. It's on Amazon.com. And I'm soon going to be having the other book, and check out our ET experiencer cards as well.
Very, very nice.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, Miesha. I just, that you're just wonderful. I love having you on. And Steve, so let everybody know what's going on with you, how to get in touch with you, all that good stuff, where you'll be.
Okay, people can check out my research on the alien implants at www.alienevidenceinc.webs.com, and I've got papers written on 4 of the alien implants that Dr. Lear took out of his patients, including myself, and there's some detailed data there that I don't think is available anyplace else, and there's information on where I'm going to be available next for doing scans, and people can call me at 805-625-2549 to make an appointment if they want a scan for recent alien contact or alien implants.
Excellent.
And they can also get in touch with me on Facebook, and at my other website, I have an email on that site that's Steve at neutronstarnanotech.com.
Wonderful.
Oh, and I did forget to do that. My email is starmisha99@yahoo.com. And also you can call me for hypnosis at 702-544-0000 even if you just need to talk. Okay.
That's wonderful. And you also do your sessions on Skype, or do you do them in person or on...
I do them in person and on Zoom, actually. I use Zoom.
Okay. You are using that. So still you can actually get a session in, and people can still feel safe even though they're doing a distant session with you energetically.
Yeah, I've had a lot of really good luck. As long as I can see them, I will not do it unless I will not do it over the radio. Excuse me, over the telephone. I have to be able to see them so I can watch them.
Do they have a witness in the room or anything like that, or can you just do one-on-one with them?
Well, witness is always nice to have, or at least somebody who's going to peek in and check on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good too, because you wonder how far down they go when they go into these regressions, right?
Yeah, especially if they have trauma, they go in very deep. People who have PTSD and trauma seem to go deeper than other people. That's what I found out. Anyway.
Makes sense, because they're so wound up that by the time they relax, there's all these layers and layers and layers of stuff in there. I'm sure that has to be looked at.
During hypnosis sessions, Miesha, do you frequently find that the alien handlers want to talk through the person?
Oh, the alien handlers. Yes, I've talked to lots of alien handlers, and or some people who they said they were the watchers or such as that. Yeah, that happens. And the very interesting thing is when I get people into a state where they are speaking as their higher consciousness, then we can talk to just anybody they want to. Mm-hmm. Because the higher consciousness can read their mind just as easy as they can read our mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We might be able to get a lot of information that way, because I know we're all plugged into the alien group consciousness, and there's certain information they won't give you, obviously, but I think we might be able to find out a lot of things that we want to know the answers to, that we're wondering about, like things like Antarctica, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, just go into your own higher self over so super conscious, but you have access to the full light Akashic, and you're also a very good remote viewer. And I mean, like I said, I can dive into stuff too. They don't seem to like it, but it doesn't matter anymore. But I mean, we're just about out of time here. I just want to thank everybody for listening tonight and tuning in. I hope you appreciated these wonderful people I have on tonight. And stay tuned for Shining Side Out with David, Dondra, and Becky coming up next to sell you on it tonight, as they always do with their fantastic show. And I believe they're talking about, well, last week it was dimensional travelers. So that kind of dovetails into what we've been talking on tonight a little bit there. So any final words? We have about maybe a minute here, plus or minus, between the spaces. Any final words for either one?
You know, I just want to tell people that do not talk to people. Do not lock yourself up into a house, and whatever else is happening to you, talk to some. If you don't talk to us, talk to somebody. You need that.
I agree. Totally.
That's true. They have to kind of be careful who they talk to at the same time, though.
Right, yeah. Not somebody who's going to sit there and lock them up, yeah. And that's another thing, too, but nowadays this stuff is so out there. Yeah.
No psychologists.
Well, thank you so much, Miesha and Steve. Wonderful beings. I love both of you. You take care, and until next time, everybody, have a great week.
Okay, you too.